Hey guys, welcome to Zelda Dungeon. I am your host Bastion. This is Zelda Discussion. Let's get on to that. Oh, but first of all, just a quick apology. Sorry that there haven't been any videos up the past couple of weeks, few weeks. I've been terribly sick with a flu or a cold or I don't know. But the point is, I've been under the weather. I still am, but let's get through it anyway. The topic for this week's video was going to be Netflix is making a live-action series about The Legend of Zelda. Should it be based on any particular game in the series? A mixture of all the games, something completely brand new. A lot of you had some very interesting opinions on that, so let's get to it. Most Random Kid on Block says, I don't think that the Netflix series should be based on a specific game, but instead have the story be a very broad Ganondorf has kidnapped Zelda and has set a reign of terror upon Hyrule type story. If it was based on a specific game, Ocarina of Time being the best example, there would be inevitably some inaccuracy that would create an uproar of fanboys that want to boycott Netflix for ruining their childhood. That is a good point. If you base it, it's just like how if a movie is based on a book and there are diehard fans of said book, and they make some changes as they always have to do because a book is a completely different thing from a movie, people get mad. They don't understand that what you can say in a book you can't really show in a movie necessarily. Same with a video game. If they based it on Ocarina of Time or any of the games for that matter, they would have to make some changes, and that might upset some people who just don't really understand that changes do have to be made. HPD says, Hi Bastion, I think that the show should maybe be the most popular games in the franchise per season as the storyline. They could possibly go via the timeline or maybe start in order of games. I don't really know whether they should pick a certain game, but if they did, I would probably pick Wind Waker or Skyward Sword because they have quite a bit of story to them. Now, I mean, they certainly could base it, each season could be based on a particular game so that when you get to the end of that season, that was one whole story arc, and then the next season is about a different game. That's certainly one way to go. You could reuse the same actors each time because Link and Zelda and Ganon and Beetle and whomever are all the same character. That's a way to go, sure. The king himself, Daphne's No Handsome Hyrule, says, I think it'd be very interesting if the series followed its own original plot that still fit into the timeline. I'd love to see a brand new Zelda adventure span the course of a whole season, and it would give the writers a lot more creative freedom. I just can't imagine they'll be able to create a whole season based on just one Zelda game, but I also fear an amalgamation of the games would just be messy and confusing to avid Zelda fans. That is a worry that if the show does do what I suggest they do, which is just borrow little bits from the various games, that could kind of rub some Zelda fans the wrong way, who are like, why is the windmill hut guy on top of Death Mountain? That's not where he's supposed to be. You know, things like that could kind of ruffle some Zelda fan feathers. Super KH Sora says, personally, I think the Netflix live-action Zelda series should follow either Ocarina of Time with maybe Majora's Mask in it at the end, or Twilight Princess. However, you have to see past the video game-based TV shows such as Mario Bros. Super Show, Legend of Zelda cartoon show, and many Sonic shows such as Adventure of Sonic, Sonic Underground, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic X. All of these were based off of the video games but didn't follow any of the stories, maybe bits and pieces. So technically, they can have some of this series related to the games, or just not follow any of them and use characters from the game. But they should semi-follow a story so people, as they watch it, can say, oh, I recognize that from A Link to the Past, or something similar. If they don't follow something, most likely it will lose its popularity pretty fast. Or maybe not. Anyways, this is my opinion. So, I mean, I do think that the viewing audience will be much larger than a hardcore Zelda fan, because as much as we would like to see a fully fleshed out version of A Link to the Past, or a fully fleshed out version of Twilight Princess or something, or Ocarina of Time, or Majora's Mask even, that's not going to be important to the casual Netflix user who's just like, oh, this show looks interesting. They're not going to know whether it's adhering bit by bit to the video game. And so really the show would have to be written to draw in a much larger audience, as some of you have pointed out, and so I don't see that they can necessarily adhere to a particular game. The Skinny Chef says, I would like to see a Netflix adaptation of Zelda to be in the veins of Kevin Sorbo's Hercules: The Legendary Journey series. There should be a central good versus evil theme with both sides completely fleshed out. Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf should be the lead characters. However, each individual episode would be free to branch off into any storyline from any Zelda game. Some episodes would need to be climatic, action-driven episodes that advance the central plot of good versus evil, but other episodes could be adaptations of side quests that tell a good story but aren't entirely dramatic, as a Link versus the boss battle or trekking through a dungeon. So, truthfully, yes, I have seen Hercules: Legendary Journey. I think if I remember right, when I was a kid, I was watching Hercules, and then Xeno Warrior Princess came on, and I was like, the show is better for reasons, so I stopped watching Hercules and watched Xena, and I think they're the same tonally, so I can kind of understand where you're going with, but I wouldn't really want a Zelda live-action series to be as goofy as those. As much as I enjoyed those shows, I don't think its tone is appropriate for a Zelda-style game. I think Zelda's a little more serious. I mean, Zelda's got tons of goofy stuff in it, for sure, but it's not quite as wacky and zany as Xena or Hercules. I don't think the tone is what the Skinny Chef is talking about. I think what the Skinny Chef is talking about is that it should have episodes that advance the plot, but then it should feel free to have nonsensical episodes that are just like, here's something goofy that happened in a side quest kind of thing. Which is true to a Zelda game, right? You are playing the game and then suddenly you're like, I've got to catch all those cuckoos and put them in a bin. So, it makes sense. Pluto Ice Cream, I really picked this one just because I like saying Pluto Ice Cream. Says, I think they should use a TV show to retell all of the stories, but at the same time it could fill all the gaps in each game. It would also tell the stories between the games that are on the timeline, like some of the wars or the flood that happened before Wind Waker. Now, I kind of lied when I said I chose it just because I like to say Pluto Ice Cream. I also think that's a great idea, is to utilize the TV show to tell some of those stories that wouldn't really make a very interesting video game, but would make an interesting story on TV. So these are the things like the imprisoning war that never really gets shown very well in any of the games, or things, that's of course when Hyrule's knights are battling against Ganondorf's forces and end up imprisoning him in the Sacred Land. They could even do like the story that leads up to the Wind Waker, which is, you know, Ganon is besieging the land and there's no Link, although I guess that wouldn't really work because there's no Link. Never mind then. Not that one. Or the Skyward Sword prequel sort of story about how Demise came to be imprisoned and become the imprisoned and stuff like that. They could take this opportunity to tell something that is timeline specific, but not something that we're ever really going to play as a video game. That would be a great way to solve that, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. What I do think they're going to do is that they're going to probably kind of ignore canon altogether and just cherry pick bits and pieces. They're just going to have, like I said, the Windmill Hut guy, he's got an interesting story, you know, something from Twilight Princess, like maybe Link transforming into a wolf, that would make an interesting story. Something from A Link to the Past, like collecting the 3 pendants to get the Master Sword, or the Disappearing Maidens might be an interesting story. I feel like they're going to cherry pick various elements and then kind of weave together their own story, which wouldn't really fit into the timeline, but they could try, if they wanted to, I guess, to make it fit into the timeline. That's it for this week's episode. As far as next week's topic, you can read it on your screen now, because I totally know what it is as I'm recording this. And if you want to check out my own channel where I babble endlessly about Nintendo news, you can do so by clicking here. See you guys next time. Bye, guys.